Disclaimer before we get into this video, this is not my official prediction, but this is what the best case scenario, well, it's actually beyond a best case scenario for Democrats, actually. It's just the Democrat dream of what Democrats dream of happening in the midterms. It is now 7 p.m. and it's now 7 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of the Georgia Senate election is currently too close to call. Incumbent Raphael Warnock currently leading over former Congressman Doug Collins. Out of the state of Indiana, we can now project that Todd Young is the projected winner, defeating J.D. Ford. Out of the Kentucky Senate race, we can now project that Rand Paul is the projected winner over Charles Booker. This was a seat that the Democrats were hoping to flip, but it does look like Rand Paul will be winning by around 18 points or more. Out of the South Carolina Senate race, it is too close to call. Incumbent Senator Tim Scott has a lead over former Congressman Joe Cunningham. Out of the state of Vermont, Patrick Leahy is the projected winner, defeating Scott Milne. Here is the current Senate map right now. Democrats lead 37 to 32 seats. Democrats need 50 seats to retain a majority. Republicans need 51 to regain said majority. Out of the Georgia governor election is currently too close to call. Stacey Abrams is leading over incumbent Brian Kemp. Out of the South Carolina governor race is too close to call, as Henry McMaster is leading over Mandy Morell. Out of the Vermont governor race, Phil Scott is leading over Ethan Sonborn. Here's the current governor map. Currently, Republicans lead 7-5. It's 26 to gain a majority. It is now 7:30 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of the North Carolina Senate race, it is too close to call, as Laura Trump is leading over Jeff Jackson. Out of the Ohio Senate race, it is too close to call. J.D. Vance is currently leading over Tim Ryan. We now have a call to the Georgia Senate race, as Raphael Warnock is the projected winner, defeating Doug Collins. Out of the South Carolina Senate race, still too close to call. It is a dead heat between the two candidates. Here is the current Senate map. Currently, Democrats lead 38 to 32. Out of the Ohio governor race, Mike DeWine is currently leading over John Cranley. Georgia is still too close to call. Stacey Abrams has gained the lead in this race. South Carolina governor race, too close to call. Henry McMaster still leading over Mandy Morell. Vermont governor race, still too close to call. Phil Scott leading over Ethan Sonborn. Here's the current governor map. Republicans leading 7-5. It is now 8 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of the Alabama Senate race, Mo Brooks is the projected winner, defeating Christopher England. This was Richard Shelby's seat before he decided to retire. Out of the Connecticut Senate race, Richard Blumenthal is the projected winner, defeating Dan Carter. Florida Senate race, too close to call. Stephanie Murphy leading over Marco Rubio. Illinois, Tammy Duckworth is the projected winner, defeating Bill Bradley. Out of the Maryland Senate race, Chris Van Hollen is the projected winner, defeating Kim Klacik. Out of the Missouri Senate race, too close to call. Eric Greeton is leading over Chris Koster. Out of the New Hampshire Senate race, Maggie Hassan is the projected winner, defeating Don Bolduc. Out of the Oklahoma Senate race, James Langford is the projected winner, defeating Dan Boren. Out of the Pennsylvania Senate race, too close to call. A race many have as a toss-up, but John Fetterman is leading over Kathy Barnett by around 9 points so far. The Ohio Senate race still too close to call. Tim Ryan has now gained the lead over J.D. Vance. South Carolina Senate race is still too close to call. Joe Cunningham has gained the lead over Tim Scott. Joe Cunningham could pull an upset here. Here's the current Senate map thus far. Democrats leading 42 to 34. Out of the Alabama governor race, Kay Ivey has won re-election, beating Sue Bell Cobb. Out of the Connecticut governor race, Ned Lamont, despite him being unpopular, has won by a safe margin, defeating Bob Stefanowski. Out of the Florida governor race, still too close to call. Ron DeSantis is leading in the race. Out of the Illinois governor race, Pete Pritzker, despite being unpopular, has won re-election, defeating Rodney Davis. Out of the Maine governor race, Janet Mills has won re-election, defeating Paul LePage. Out of the Maryland governor race, John Delaney has won, defeating Robin Ficker. Out of the Massachusetts governor race, too close to call, as Charlie Baker is leading over Benjamin Downing. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, too close to call, as Chris Sununu is leading over Andre Valinsky. Out of the Oklahoma governor race, Kevin Stinn has won re-election, defeating Connie Johnson. Out of the Pennsylvania governor race, too close to call, is Josh Shapiro's leading over Lou Barletta. Rhode Island, Dan McKee has won his first full term to the governorship, defeating Blake Filippi. Out of the Tennessee governor race, Bill Lee has won re-election, beating Craig Fitzhughes. We now have a call at the Georgia governor race, as Stacey Abrams has flipped the seat blue. She has defeated Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp became increasingly unpopular the more he was governor, and it hit rock bottom after the 2020 election as Trump turned on him for failing to overturn the state electoral results. And though there was a failed primary by Vernon Jones, Brian Kemp still ended up losing the general to Stacey Abrams. Maybe 2018 was rigged and against Stacey Abrams. Who knows? We now have a call also out of Vermont's governor race, as Phil Scott has been re-elected, beating Ethan Sonborn. Ohio's governor race still too close to call. John Cranley now leading over Mike DeWine. Out of the South Carolina governor race, too close to call. It's a dead tie between the two candidates. And here's the current governor map. It's tied 11-11 between the two parties. It is now 8:30 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of the Arkansas Senate race, a seat that Democrats were hoping to gain some momentum but failed in was this state, but John Boozman has been re-elected, beating Bill Halter. We now have a call for the Pennsylvania Senate race, as John Fetterman has flipped the seat blue, defeating Kathy Barnett. John Fetterman, very popular in certain suburbs, as you can see, turning some of these redder areas Trump made into a lighter red, kind of pinkish color now, as you can see on the map. But John Fetterman has flipped the seat blue, giving Democrats the seat that they needed for a majority. We also have a call of the Senate seat of Ohio, Tim Ryan defeating J.D. Vance to gain a Republican seat turning blue. Popular in the northeastern area of Ohio, as many white working class voters over there, very popular with the white working class. Tim Ryan was able to pull out enough Trump-Biden voters to turn the seat blue. Enough of those Obama-Trump voters is what I meant to say, and turn the seat blue. Tim Ryan has defeated J.D. Vance. Out of the Florida Senate race, it's currently too close to call. Stephanie Murphy still leading over Marco Rubio. Out of the Missouri Senate race, still too close to call. Chris Koster is now leading over Eric Greens. This will be a huge shocker, as polling currently has Greens leading by 2 points. It would be a huge gain for Democrats if they were able to flip the seat in Missouri. This could be a repeat of 2018's Kansas gubernatorial race, where most people saw it going red, but ended up with a surprise flip blue. We could see this repeat here, but for Missouri's Senate race. Out of the South Carolina Senate race, still too close to call, as Joe Cunningham is leading over Tim Scott still. Here's the current Senate map, as Democrats leading 44-35. Democrats only need 6 seats to maintain their majority, and it seems like they are going to, if they were to keep every single, and let's be honest, if they keep every single seat that they won in if they have before this election, they're gonna win the Senate back, as they already gained both Ohio and Pennsylvania. Out of the Arkansas governor race, Sarah Huckabee Sanders has won the seat, defeating Greg Leding. But now the call out of the Pennsylvania governor race, as Josh Shapiro has won, defeating Lou Barletta, keeping the seat blue. A big pickup for Democrats. Very popular Cincinnati mayor, very popular with the rural area. John Cranley has won, defeating Mike DeWine, flipping the seat blue. We don't have on record from the last time a Democrat was able to win in Ohio and on the gubernatorial level, but John Cranley, very popular amongst Republicans, was able to defeat Mike DeWine. Some call him a John Bell Edwards-esque Democrat. Very conservative, but he was able to flip the seat blue with not many Republicans who voted for DeWine being upset, it seems like. Out of the Florida governor race, still too close to call. Charlie Crist now leading over Ron DeSantis. Out of the Massachusetts governor race, still too close to call. Charlie Baker still leading. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, still too close to call. Chris Sununu is still leading. Out of the South Carolina governor race, still too close to call. Manny Norell still leading over Henry McMaster. Here's the current gubernatorial map. Democrats now leading 13-12. It could be a huge upset if Democrats were able to win the National Governor Association. It would be the first time in years since they were able to do so. is now 9 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of Arizona, the Senate race is too close to call. Mark Kelly leading over Andy Biggs. Out of the Colorado Senate race, Michael Bennet has won re-election, beating Eli Bremer. Kansas Senate race, still close to call. Barbara Bollier shockingly leading over Jerry Morin. This seat, where many were saying that Barbara Bollier could possibly beat Chris Kobach if he was the Republican nominee in 2020. She decided to run again because Kobach didn't get the nomination. Roger Marshall did, and she decided to go after a lesser-known candidate in Jerry Morin, and now she's seeing light now that she's currently leading. But of course, that is coming from the urban area. Out of the Louisiana Senate race, John Kennedy has defeated Dan Kazayukes, winning another term to the Senate. Out of the New York Senate race, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has won re-election, beating Richard Hanna. Out of the North Dakota Senate race, John Hubbin has won re-election, beating Dustin Payer. Out of the South Dakota Senate race, too close to call, John Thune currently leading over popular Democrat Billy Sutton. Out of the Wisconsin Senate race, too close to call, Sarah Godlewski is leading over unpopular incumbent Ron Johnson. We now have called the Florida Senate race, another big gain for Democrats, as many said Marco Rubio was unbeatable in the state, and some people called me crazy for saying this was going to happen, but Stephanie Murphy has defeated Marco Rubio. Her popularity from her district, as well as from moderate Republicans, has pushed her over the top, as many say Marco Rubio has become soft during the days of Trump, and she has now taken over Rubio, gaining Democrats a seat in the Senate. Out of the South Carolina Senate race, too close to call, Joe Cunningham currently leading over Tim Scott. Out of the Missouri Senate race, still too close to call, a dead tie between the two candidates. Here is the current Senate composition, Senate map, with Democrats leading 47 to 37. Out of the Arizona governor race, Katie Hobbs currently leading over Paul Gosar. Out of the Colorado governor race, Jared Polis has won re-election, beating Bob Villa-Cruz. Out of the Kansas governor race, Laura Kelly leading over Jeff Collier. Out of the Michigan governor race, too close to call, Richard Whitmer leading over Brian Calley. Out of the Minnesota governor race, Tim Walz has been re-elected by a very wide margin, by 11 or 12 points, defeating Mike Lindell. Out of the Nebraska governor race, Mike Foley has won the seat, defeating Bob Christ. Out of the New Mexico governor race, Michelle Lujan Grisham has won re-election, beating John Sanchez. Out of the New York governor race, after a failed attempt by both Bill de Blasio and Ron Kemp, who split the progressive vote two ways, Andrew Cuomo won his primary by 40 to 45%, and he's gone on to win, defeating Lee Zeldin by double digits, to no one's surprise. Out of the South Dakota governor race, too close to college, Kristi Noem currently leads over Stephanie Sandlin. Out of the Texas governor race, too close to call, Greg Abbott leading over Beta O'Rourke. Out of the Wisconsin governor race, Tony Evers leading over Sean Duffy. Out of the Wyoming governor race, Mark Gordon has been re-elected to another term, defeating James W. Byrd. We now have called the Florida governor race. Charlie Crist has shocked many, defeating popular incumbent Ron DeSantis. Nobody saw this coming, not even us here at Chaotic Politics. Nobody saw this coming, but Charlie Crist is able. Maybe we can credit Stephanie Murphy and her down ballot potential. Who knows? But Charlie Crist is now the projected winner of the Florida governor race, and has won a second term to the governorship. This time, once as a Republican, now as a Democrat. We also have calls out of the Massachusetts governor race, as Charlie Baker has won another term to the governorship, defeating Benjamin Downing. We now have a call of the New Hampshire governor race. Chris Sununu has won re-election, defeating Andrew Walensky. Out of the South Carolina governor race, too close to call still, Mandy Norell is still leading in the race. Here's the current governor map, as Democrats leading 18 to 16. It is now 10 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of the Iowa Senate race, too close to call, Cindy Axne is currently leading over Chuck Grassley. Out of the Nevada Senate race, too close to call, Catherine Cortez Masto is leading over Mark Amadai. We now have a call of the Utah Senate race. Mike Lee has won re-election, beating Ben McAdams. This was a seat the Democrats were hoping to to at least make close, but they couldn't do it. Mike Lee's still going to win by double digits, possibly over 15 points. And Ben McAdams could not be successful statewide. We now call the Arizona Senate race. Mark Kelly has won a re-election, technically for his first full term, defeating Andy Biggs. Out of the South Dakota Senate race, John Thune has won a re-election despite Trump's backing of Billy Sutton. John Thune has defeated Billy Sutton. However, he didn't win by a big margin, just by 4 points. But John Thune will go back to being the number 2 Republican in the Senate. Out of the Kansas Senate race, too close to call, a dead tie between the two candidates. Wisconsin Senate race, too close to call, Sarah Godlewski still leading. South Carolina Senate race, too close to call, a dead tie between the two candidates. The Missouri Senate race, too close to call, a dead tie between the two candidates. Here's the current Senate map. Democrats have 48 to 39 seats. Out of the Iowa governor race, Rob Sand is currently leading over incumbent Kim Reynolds. Out of Nevada's governor race, Steve Sisolak is leading over Adam Laxalt in a 2018 rematch. We now have a call to the state of Kansas as Laura Kelly has won re-election by a bigger margin than expected, defeating Jeff Collier. Out of the Michigan governor race, no surprise here, as Gretchen Whitmer has won re-election, defeating Brian Kelly. Out of the South Dakota governor race, Kristi Noem has defeated Stephanie Sandlin to narrowly win another term as governor. Out of the Wisconsin governor race, Tony Evers has won re-election, defeating Sean Duffy. Out of the South Carolina governor race, too close to call, Mandy Norrell still leading over Henry McMaster. Out of the Arizona governor race, still too close to call, Katie Hobbs still leading. Out of the Texas governor race, too close to call, Beto O'Rourke is now leading over two-term, possibly three-term incumbent Greg Abbott. He's now leading. Beto O'Rourke could right the wrongs of the 2018 Senate election and possibly win a statewide election in Texas. Here's the current governor map as Democrats now lead 23 to 17. Democrats only need 3 more seats, and they could possibly do it by California, Oregon, and Hawaii. If they keep those 3 seats, they win the Governor Association for the first time in years. It is now 11 p.m. The following states have poll closings. Out of the California Senate race, Alex Padilla has won his first full term to the Senate, defeating Jerome Horton. Out of the Hawaii Senate race, Brian Schatz has won re-election, being Charles Ajot. We can now project that the Democrats will keep their majority in the Senate. They will actually expand on their majority. By how much, we don't know, but Chuck Schumer will spend another 2 years as the Senate Majority Leader. Out of the Idaho Senate race, Mike Crapo has won re-election, defeating Richard Stallings. Out of the Oregon Senate race, Ron Wyden has won a re-election, defeating Joe Ray Perkins. Out of the Washington Senate race, Patty Murray has won a re-election, defeating Kathy Rogers. We now have a call to the Iowa Senate race, as Cindy Axne has won has won this seat, defeating Chuck Grassley. We don't have on file when a Democrat last won in Iowa, but Chuck Grassley has pretty much won every single county except one for the past 3, maybe 4 Senate races he's been in. But now Cindy Axne has beaten him, someone who won by 20 points or more in his last re-election bid. Grassley failed to get it done because of the major conflict within the Republican Party, because they're so split from the Trump base and the traditional base. Out of the Nevada Senate race, Catherine Cortez Masto is the projected winner, defeating Mark Amidei. She has won re-election to another term. Out of the Wisconsin Senate race, Sarah Godlewski has won this seat, defeating incumbent Ron Johnson. Another gain for Democrats, as they are doing better in the Rust Belt, in the South, in the Northeast, the West. They're doing better all across the country. I can make this prediction right now. This is a blue wave year. Democrats are even expected to make gains in the House. Out of the Kansas Senate race, it's currently too close to call, a dead tie between the 2 candidates. South Carolina Senate race, too close to call, Joe Cunningham now leading over Tim Scott again. Missouri Senate race, too close to call, a dead tie between the 2 candidates. And here is the current map so far. Democrats have won the Senate 55 to 40. We still have about 5 races. Yes, I had to count because I don't have this scripted. Out of the California governor race, Gavin Newsom has won another term, defeating Kevin Faulconer. There was a failed recall attempt, but in 2021, about a year later, Kevin Faulconer went to a Republican primary and failed miserably against Gavin Newsom. Out of the Hawaii governor race, Kirk Caldwell has won this seat, defeating Andrea Bulla. Out of Idaho, Brad Little has won re-election, defeating Michelle Stennett, despite a primary challenge from his lieutenant governor, Janice McGetchen. Out of the Oregon governor race, Ted Wheeler, the unpopular Portland mayor, has won re-election, has won the seat, defeating Bud Pierce. Out of we now call it the Arizona governor race, Katie Hobbs will flip the seat blue, defeating Paul Gosar, meaning that Democrats have control of the National Governors Association, which is big news for Democrats. We also, big news out of Texas, Beto O'Rourke has flipped Texas blue, something he said he could do, and he's now proven it. Even though he's 4 years late, he has now flipped Texas blue, defeating Greg Abbott. Out of the Iowa governor race, holy cow, we have another flip. Rob Sand has flipped Iowa blue, as well as Sidney Axne. That could be why he was flipped blue, but he defeated Ken Reynolds, doing very well in Iowa. We now call it the Nevada governor race. Steve Sisolak will win another term, defeating Adam Laxalt. Again, out of the South Carolina governor race, too close to call, Mandy Norrell currently leading over Henry McMaster. Here's the current governor map. Democrats have 30 seats to 18. There are 2 races left to be called out of this seat. It is anyone's game right now. Not really. It's Democrats' game because they won the Governor Association. Currently 4 seats more than they need to. It is now 1 a.m. in Alaska. Is the last state to have their polls closed. We can now project here at 1:45 a.m. Al Gross is the projected winner, defeating Sarah Palin. This is a gain for Democrats. An independent, actually. Al Gross is an independent, but he promised to caucus with Democrats. It is now 2:52 as Barbara Bollier has flipped Kansas blue. Big news for Democrats, as seemingly they're getting closer and closer to a filibuster-proof majority. She has defeated Jerry Moran to flip the seat blue. It is now 2:58 as Joe Cunningham has flipped South Carolina Senate seat blue. As you can see, there's a lot of blue on that map. And Joe Cunningham, though it's narrow, he has flipped South Carolina blue for Democrats in the Senate. It's now 3:05 a.m. We now call this Missouri Senate race. Chris Koster has flipped Missouri blue, albeit narrowly. He defeated unpopular Republican Eric Greitens. It was due to the controversy and the resigning due to that controversy. Chris Koster has defeated Eric Greitens, flipping Missouri blue, allowing Democrats a filibuster-proof majority in my eyes. And as you can see here, a filibuster-proof majority for the Democrat Party, as they have, well, technically 59 to 40 to 1, but that one independent is going to the Democrats, as Al Gross will caucus with them, along with the other 2 independents and Bernie Sanders and Angus King. A filibuster-proof majority, meaning the last 2 years of Joe Biden's presidency will have smooth sailing from here on out. At the Alaska governor race, it is now 3:10 a.m. as we can now project that Edgar Blatchford will defeat Mike Dunleavy, now I'm pronouncing it wrong, Mike Dunleavy, and he will flip Alaska blue. He is a Democrat, and he only won it by 3 points, very close, but he didn't get the majority though. But Edgar Blatchford will become Alaska's next governor. It is now 4:32 in the morning as we now have a projection of the South Carolina governor race as Mandy Powers, and she will flip South Carolina's gubernatorial seat blue. She has defeated Henry McMaster. We can now project that. Big news for Democrats as they now have 32 seats on the gubernatorial level. Here is the final gubernatorial map. Sorry about that. But there was the final map, 32 to 18. Big news for Democrats. Democrats gained about 22 House seats, expanding on their majority, flipping back almost every single seat they lost in 2020. Again, guys, this is not my prediction. It's not. Don't even think that. This is just the Democrat dream, what they dream of happening. But anyway, guys, this is the Gaddick One saying,